I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low-key. I'm sipping low-key and honest, rider. I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, I get those goosebumps every time.
We're back in business. Welcome all to Loading Mag NFC. Finally, we're back in to talk all things Newcastle United and transfers. And of course, we couldn't do it without having the boys in town. So, boys, how you doing, Richie, Chris?
Yeah, all right, mate. All right. Been a bit quiet over the weekend, but hopefully things are going to start picking up from today onwards for the rest of the week.
Definitely. Mr. Hall, how are you?
Very good, mate. Very good. I was doing a little bit of interviewing today, and we managed to fill the post, which I'm made up about because I'm made up for the individual. And I'll be honest, I've really missed doing the shows, mate, because it feels a long time since we've done a show. I know it's only been about 4 days, but it feels about 4 months. So very excited to be back on and talk all things Newcastle with the boys. So yeah, I'm buzzing.
Definitely. And of course, this show won't be the show without having fantastic people in the chat. And I've already flooded in 170 plus already in the chat. Thank you for coming and joining us on this full loaded transfer show journey. We've got Billy Ace in the house. Welcome, Billy. We've got Kamal, of course. We've got Lisa Mo, our resident spanner. Hope you are well. David Cook. We've got Drew, Paul Gallant in the house. Welcome, Paul. Nobby Clark. Jordan Toon for life, many more. Craig Lee, of course, PDK, great to have you in there, as well as many others. And look, just before we get started, if anyone's seen the tweet, or tweets, should I say, of Loaded Mag and UFC family members, community members, plugging us for the overlap, get your tweet out, get the 4 boys on the overlap ASAP. Come and get it done right before the start of the season. So if you haven't added your tweet to that and tagged in Loaded Mag NUFC, make sure you do that and spread the word. Loaded Mag NUFC are more than happy to go on the overlap and represent Newcastle United and talk all things football with those Sky Boys. So yeah, just a little something in there. And of course, housekeeping. 200 view plus in the chat. 200 likes right now. Come on. Target 400.
Where
I think that's fair. Yeah. There he is. He's on that. I love it.
On the button, as always, Richie. And thanks for watching already. And thanks for subscribing and liking. We are under 200 away, 180 or maybe 170, I think it is, away from 6K. So try and get us there in the next few days. That would be amazing. But look, lots to talk about with various different things Newcastle United. But first, a few things that are positive within that. And our very own Jordan Cronin of Newcastle World put a story out today. He understands Newcastle are opening talks with Dan Burn over an improved contract, looking to go beyond the 2025. He talks about he's an incredible leader. And how that is going to be crucial in the next few years within the squad, whether he plays or not. Boys, what are your opinions on that potential move to secure Dan Burn on a new contract? Are you happy with that? Is it the right move? What are your thoughts, Richie?
Yeah, I think it's good, a good idea. He already had the extension put on from his original contract because obviously he met certain criteria so far. But apparently, going off reading a report that Jordan's put in, that he's so valued in that leadership group that regardless, he's probably going to be the new Paul Dummett when it gets towards the end of that the contract, where he's part of the playing squad now, the first team squad, and he's going to be playing games. Whether he's going to be a full-time left back by the time the season starts or by the window closes, time will tell. Obviously, he was part of the meanest defence in the Premier League last year, so even if he isn't, it's a bit harsh. But at the end of the day, he's going to be a valuable member of the playing squad as cover at left back and for Sven Botman as well. And then obviously, you know how much that passion for it would have been a local lad, obviously from Blythe. That's going to be so important for all the new people that are coming in and joining the squad, that they get to know the area, what's required, what's expected and stuff like that. So, look, fantastic for me. Whether it be a further year or not, or a further 2 years, you can't go wrong. It'll be nice to see Dan Burn see out his playing career at the Toon, and then obviously possibly going on to part of the coaching team afterwards. As I think Eddie Howe said, he's a fantastic, exceptional character. So, have him around the club going forward, full stop.
No, good points for sure. I agree with a lot of that, particularly with the coaching role that you mentioned. That'd be a really, really interesting move. Chris, it talked about in Jordan's article the fact that he might not play every week, and he'd be an influence in behind the scenes. Is that something that Eddie Howe, in your opinion, is looking at now? Looking at maybe some of the other players who are in the squad at the moment that are doing something similar. Is he looking at trying to build that new network of leaders within the squad, and is that maybe a big reason why that contract's been extended?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and like as you said, Pete, you agree with what Richie was saying. I think Dan Burn is particularly integral, and it was interesting, that Richie brought Paul Dummett up, because I could see that myself in time to come. But the reason for me that Dan Burn's so integral to the squad at the moment is not only does he provide cover at left back, or he is the full-time left back at the moment, he also gives you that cover at left centre back, and the fact that he absolutely adores being here. The fact that I think I've described him as a tree before. He's the kind of player that you love to bring on, because he's so, he's such a threat in both boxes. He's almost like the perfect player to have around the squad. Not to mention he's a fantastic lad as well, and behind the scenes, apparently he's brilliant. He's brilliant with the fans. So when you mentioned, Pete, about the leadership group, I think it's really important, and it sends a big message out as well. To not just the current team, but also the youngsters, that if you work hard, you give 110%, that you'll be rewarded. And we want to keep players like Dan Burn around, in and around the team. We've seen him do it with Matt Ritchie. We've seen him do it with Mark Gillespie. We've seen him do it with Paul Dummett. But Dan Burn's even more important, because he's actually an integral part of the squad at the minute. And even if we were to bring in a permanent left back, Dan Burn's still got a huge part to play, because if that left back's out, or if Sven Botman's rested or whatever, Dan Burn's going to be ready to come in, and he's not going to cause any disruptions. He's going to remain professional, and he will just be there to support Eddie and the lads, whether he's on the pitch or he's not. So for me, a huge step in the right direction.
Definitely. And look, we'll stick with you with regards to that, Chris, because you've touched on one or two other players anyway, and we talked about Paul Dummett signing a new contract. Loris Karius has signed a new contract. What was your reaction to that, with regards to that, and what might that look like now that we know he's going to be staying for another season in terms of the goalkeeping situation?
That's a really interesting question, actually, mate, because I was thinking about this the other day, and I've got my own theory on it, which I will come to. But I was quite surprised because of all the the whispers and the rumours that have been going around about. Well, I say rumours, not really rumours; it's fact. Karius's partner is away in Italy. She's pregnant. And everybody assumed and thought that Karius would want to, make a move to Italy and be there permanently with her. Obviously, he's decided to stay here, which is great for us. If we want him and he wants to stay, that's brilliant. In terms of what it means for us as, our collection of goalkeepers, for me now, what I believe this means is that I think Nick Pope will obviously be the number one. I think Karius will be the number two, and then I expect Mark Gillespie to be the number three. I would be very surprised if we kept four goalkeepers on the books. So I'm expecting Dubravka to go and Darlow to go, for me personally. Now, given the fact that Mark Gillespie has only got a year extension and Karius has only got a year extension, it could be time for an upheaval. Or it could be that perhaps we let Dubravka go out on loan. He'll come back next season and be the number 2, or maybe move on. Who knows? But to me, it feels like it's probably a place in the squad that we want to improve on, but now is not the time, and we don't need to right now. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if we kept Pope, and then we went with Karius and Gillespie for the rest of this season, for this coming season, and then at the end of the season we were like, right, time for the new number 1. Now that's no disrespect to Nick Pope, or it could be that we bring in somebody, a number 2, who is going to be really challenging Nick Pope, for the top, because at the end of the day, this squad is going to evolve over the next few years, and I think they will want to bring in a real top quality number 2. And the fact that Karius has been offered a year deal indicates to me that this is a short-term stopgap. But that's just my opinion.
No, I mean, look, it's a good theory. It's a good theory with regards to that goalkeeping situation. Do you see it the same, Richie, or have you got a different spin on the Karius new contract? Because I'll be honest, like, I didn't see anything on social media. You boys already know I've kind of been off the last 3 or 4 days. But just going back through when I was looking at the tweets to get some of the pictures ready and looking at some of the comments, there were some people that were surprised by it. Were you?
I think I was surprised, going back off what Chris said. I'm surprised on the fact that because he's partners based in Italy, and obviously they're expecting on that front, yes. Regards to the opportunities, we don't know what obviously other clubs have come in from, in and around Italy, if any, or over Europe. So what he's got to look at is what's going to be best from going forward. I think it's fantastic. He's coming as probably going to be the number 2, like Chris said. I could see Darlow and Dubravka going, and that also gives you another 12 months to go and find your challenger for Pope. But the interesting thing I found was that even though his partner's expecting, he signed a new contract, whereas Maddison's expecting, and then he decided to go to London instead.
It's an interesting point.
Just really, you know, he got these priorities right. Know exactly what was the right thing to do, wasn't it?
Yeah. Definitely, of course, it stayed Newcastle. Standard procedure, but no, it's a really interesting point, and I think maybe for another day that Maddison conversation, because I'm still convinced that we didn't even go in for him. But that's another thing.
Yeah. Pete, what do you think on Karius?
I'm not going to lie. I'm surprised by it. I thought, particularly with the way that it's weird because I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised, and I'll come to it in a second. I'm surprised from one sense because I do think it means Dubravka leaves, but I'm surprised in that sense because I think after Dubravka's performance against Chelsea, and I thought he played really, really well that day. I thought
he did. If
he's happy to stay at the club, he's a great alternative to have. For example, you go back to the cup final, Pope gets sent off. Dubravka's a good understudy to come in, reliable. He's shown that on the big occasion he can perform. So, Champions League, for example, if something happens, you've got Dubravka coming in, he can do a job. Like Karius is that backup, but I genuinely think, and this might add into further conversations for us, I genuinely think Dubravka's where we hold the value out of all the goalkeepers. We're not going to get rid of Pope. Pope holds the biggest value, but out of all the goalkeepers, I think maybe Eddie Howe's looked at it and gone, you know what, Dubravka holds the biggest value. We may need to move him on if that's going to get in an extra few million that we can play around with. Then great, and that might be part of our conversation later on down the line. But I'm going to.
I was going to say just to finish on Karius, another interesting fact, and we've got to remember this, and then he had good and bad on this, but he's got Champions League experience as a goalkeeper, which is something none of our goalkeepers have got. I don't know whether Dubravka had any when he was in obviously Czech Republic with Sparta Prague. I'm not too sure, so I don't want to be quoted on that and say he did. But I think obviously with Karius, obviously he had some experience. Yes, we know how it ended for him in the Champions League final and stuff, but you've got to have some good experiences before you get to the final as well. So he can count on all of those to pass it on to Nick Pope and the rest of the team as well. Stuff that needs to be done in that sort of situation, because you go through there. You've got Trippier, you've got Botman, you've got Bruno. I don't know. Has Isak? I'm not too sure. Got any Champions League experience? I think he might have a little bit.
Yeah, it was saucy.
There is at this moment in time. Obviously, Sandro Tonali as well is probably one of the most experienced of the lot. We're starting to get that Champions League experience, and so it helps that there's that experience throughout the team in all positions as well. So.
Yeah, and you said it's got Champions League experience, Champions League final experience. I think you might need that ready for this season, but we'll wait and see on that one. But no, very
just an interesting point. Just before you go in, it's a very interesting sort of. Let's just put in here. Can Carrier speak Italian? Now, this could be a very good link, obviously, to Tonali.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
So thanks for putting that in there. Obviously, his wife being in it, that's very, very interesting. So thanks for putting that in there.
Les, quality. Yeah, great
talk.
talk.
Hopefully, if he does, it's just a short-term fix of any potential rivals that might come in who are fluent in Italian as well. So,
I'm sure we'll talk about it. But look, honestly, boys, this is kind of where we're going to get to the kind of meat of the conversation. And just before we do that, I am aware that people are putting in questions in the chat. We are going to get to all of your questions. We've got at least 14 already. More people are putting questions in. I think the Ginger Hoskin is in the chat, and he put a couple of questions in. Welcome to the chat, and one or two others since then. So get your questions in, and we're more than happy to answer them. But I have to be honest, I think I might have said to you boys after a show, not last week, the week before, that last week I expected movement from Newcastle in terms of potentially picking up a player. Hasn't quite materialised. In your opinions, before we get to individual players, are you, just really briefly, are you worried by the fact that there's no movement now? Or have you got a different vision to how you see where we are right now? So, Chris, I'll come to you on that one.
I was hoping you were going to come to me first.
Sorry.
No.
To mention the goalkeeper thing, I thought,
yeah,
can't leave you out, man. I can't.
No. Do you know what? I was gonna when you were talking about it, I was thinking, am I disappointed? And then I thought, nah, I'm not disappointed. I think I'm just a little bit. If anything, actually, I'm gonna go the other way. I think I'm more like excited in anticipation, because it's not. Let's make it clear. I'm not sitting here thinking, I wondered if we're going to bring someone in. This isn't like the Ashley days where we used to kind of go, oh no, I've still got my vape. You'll see that in a minute, Jimmy.
Blaze, come on.
Anthony Blaze, of course. Standard goes with. No, but I suppose I'm surprised. I'm surprised that something hasn't happened sooner. However, on the other hand, I'm kind of waiting in anticipation, because, as I say, in previous times, if this was under Ashley, we'd be going, oh my God, are we going to bring someone in? We need a left back, we need a right winger, we need a central midfielder, we need a centre back. We'd all be kind of a little bit panicky. But I'm not panicky at all. I just feel that, we're waiting for the right moment. I think we've described it before, lads, haven't we? As kind of like, I truly believe there's a lot of plates spinning, and all of a sudden, it'll just go bam, 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 like we did with Tonali. I think if the right deal's there, if the time's right, the price is right, and the player wants to come, I think the deal will happen. I think we're all just Pete, you and I spoke privately about this, didn't we? I think we're all just kind of waiting in anticipation. We're all just excited. It's a bit like Christmas Eve's coming. It's not quite there, but you're just waiting. And then that news. I mean, lads, what's it like when a new name drops, or someone goes, oh, someone's been spotted. Richie loves the planes like me. The rumours all start flying around. Richie's posting the planes. We're all going, what's going on? And it's brilliant. Transfer season is brilliant. I think I'm just waiting in anticipation is to answer that question. But I am a little bit surprised that something hasn't happened yet. But that's not to say that I'm disappointed. I started with disappointment, but I'm not disappointed now.
I like that, waiting in anticipation. Richie, are you the same, or do you see our window in a different kind of light from what Chris is saying?
I think in an ideal world, you'd always want to get your business done early. And obviously, we know that Eddie Howe likes that to do, especially with was having the trip to the US, which I think when he likes to have a lot of the people on board if possible. I think we had Botman on board by this time, Isak was thereabouts before we went abroad as well. So it's interesting. However, it's not the end of the world. We're July the 11th now. It doesn't close until the end of August, last day of August. So on that front, it's not the end of the world. And we've had that discussion over the weekend as well, where it's good. It is good when you've got rumours coming flying everywhere, and it's nice to see that you're linked with these players. But we know that's just not how the club are working now. A lot of the deals are just you don't even know, the name hasn't even been mentioned, and all of a sudden it's just like bang, bids in. So it's more look for the Romano comments and stuff like that. That's where you really, really start to like hold your attention to. And obviously he's got a busy transfer window himself, full stop. But there's Newcastle are a big player in the transfer market now, so we are going to be there or thereabouts a lot more. And obviously there's a few little things coming up. There's something that's been put in just about 5 minutes before the show start, which I'm just uploading the picture for now to us to discuss as well, Pete. So we will sign more players. It's inevitable, right? Let's just go along with it when it happens. And if it's bang done within 24, well, hopefully 24 to 48 hours, not like the Tonali one, which was dragged out for 2 weeks, but obviously that was due to have been part in the Euro 21s. Which, to be fair, we must have to hand up to the English under 21s for well done for winning the tournament, because obviously we haven't had a show since they won it, but also to Anthony Gordon as well for being player of the tournament as well, which we discussed in our chat as well, that he's only the second Englishman behind Mark Hateley to win it, and some of the prestigious names in that list as well. He's joined a nice little bunch there, but look, let's get back to the transfers anyway.
Pete, just before you come in, I just want to add on to just something at the end of what Richie said there. For Eddie, Dan, Davin, all you lads at Newcastle who are watching, do us a favour. When we announce a player, let's just get him announced. I want videos, I want pictures, I want everything. Like the Tonali thing for me, I was a bit like, when he got announced, I was like, yeah, but where is he? Where is he? I want to see him. I want to see the shirt. And he got announced on the Monday, didn't he? And then we had to wait till Wednesday. And it was just a bit like, I don't know. People in the chat tell me if you think I'm wrong there, but I loved, like previous signings that we made, like Saint-Maximin when the video come out, and then he was doing interviews and the music and all stuff like that. I felt like on Monday night it was like, oh, he's announced, great, and we had to wait. And so please just get it all done at once, please.
I think they would have wanted to. I'll be honest with you, but I think with Tonali, there was such a small window to get it done, because we saw the reaction for all rival fans. They were like, Tonali? Nah, you ain't getting Tonali. Shit, they're getting Tonali. Why don't I fucking come getting Tonali? Go and get Tonali, Liverpool. Go and get Tonali, Man United, everyone. And because of that reaction, that is why Newcastle had to act fast. They had to agree the deal first, get it done. Is clearly they wanted to wait to the new financial year, Richie. I think you mentioned that before. New financial year, get it signed and sealed, and then get him over when he's had a couple of days after he's been knocked out of the under 21s, and then do it properly. Other big clubs do it as well. Real Madrid tend to do it. They tend to just put an announcement out, announced, and then they do all the fun stuff afterwards. Big clubs tend to do it that way because, let's face it, we're looking at the big players. And sometimes big players are not always readily available to do all the media stuff straight away. But I'm with you, Chris. I like it. I like what they did with Isak and all the rest of it, where they build it up, and we'll get it.
We will get it. I hope we'll get it.
About that. But Richard made a really interesting point. I wasn't going to segue to this, but because he said it, I think it's right that we do. And he talked about, there's a lot of links out there. There's a lot of rumors. There's a lot of speculation. Hell, it's part of the reason why I took some time off, because some of these, they just drain you of constant rumors and speculation. And look, we'll always bring some of it to you. Of course we will, but there is some of it that's not credible, and we won't tend to bring it to you. However, it's really interesting that I'm going to bring this person up because there is an update on him just now, and it is Harvey Barnes. And you mentioned this is what quite nice actually. You mentioned, Richard, about players when Romano brings it up, and he's just brought out something now, and he's just released that Newcastle are planning to advance on Harvey Barnes' deal next week. Talks are already underway, but negotiations will continue into the next days to get it done. Barnes already accepted Newcastle as his destination. Deal depends on the clubs and NUFC outgoings. So that's the latest update, apparently, with regards to that
one there, mate, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know if that's new. Someone's
no. That's obviously what you just read out there, but obviously the Jordans followed on. He had one this morning as well. Obviously, Jordan's a fantastic source. Obviously, didn't play a bit behind closed door friendly today. Apparently he was rested at the start of the season, but never mind. But also the Times have also just released half an hour ago, Pete. I don't know if you're aware of it. I've put the screenshot in of the actual article. The Times here. Harvey Barnes' potential transfer to Newcastle from Leicester has moved significantly step closer, with the two clubs engaging in fresh talks over the last 24 hours to conclude a deal for the 25-year-old.
Yeah. So that's where we are with Harvey Barnes. Now, what do we make of all this? And I'm going to let you guys. I'm going to let you guys talk to me about this one because there's.
Mark Aldridge first. I
want you to go first. I'm going to go first.
Look, let's face it. There's a lot of discussion about this particular deal. There's a lot of discussion around it completely. There's an update there that's just come out. Richie, you just put it out there. I think I read the wrong one actually. That was sent to me. It was sent the Romano one, and then that one straight after. But
that's all right.
From your perspectives, look, I don't know who wants to go first. Harvey Barnes.
He's already committed me to it, didn't he?
When you were talking, I was going.
Ricky, what do you make? To be fair, I came to Chris first on one of the other ones, so it's only fair we Harvey Barnes, what do you make of that potential transfer? And what do you make of the fact that, of its ongoing situation? Because it is ongoing, isn't it? And that update that's been provided by the Times has proven that it's still an ongoing situation. What do you make of it?
Well, I don't mind going first because obviously then I can't be accused of copying other people's responses. So, yes. Had to get that in there. Sorry. They'll have know what it's about anyway. There you go. No, in regards to Harvey, but look, we all said last week, right? I did in particular. I said he's not one of those where like if you were saying Chiesa or you were saying Moussa Diaby. For me, he's not in that ilk of player. However, if he was to come to our squad, he enhances the squad, he betters the squad, his stats prove it for what he does in the Premier League. So he would be a fantastic addition. And I'll stand by that. And obviously, if Eddie Howe, that's the player he wants, then we've always backed every other person he's bought. Whether it's been, you go through Kieran Trippier and some people will say, he was past it and stuff like that, and he's been a fantastic addition. You also then look at, Dan Burn. People questioned that. Local people didn't question Dan Burn. A few people didn't even know who Dan Burn was, and they admitted that on a show as well. Do you know what I mean? So I was quite interesting on that. But look, he enhances the squad, and that's all you want to do. And he's got that Premier League quality. And I think that the most telling thing, what we've got to remember compared to, and this has been one of the major topic of conversations over the last week since it really broke, last 5 to 6 days, is the fact that yes, he isn't a similar sort of winger to ASM. To be fair, ASM's an enigma, isn't he? Really, he's a maverick. There's probably nobody else in the league that really, the only winger that's probably as fast and possibly not even as skillful as him. He's been compared to him before as Adama Traore, realistically, and very similar. the stats are pretty much the same. Do you know what I mean? They can get the byline, but sometimes it's not the end product. And that's what I think Newcastle fans have been looking at when they've been comparing Harvey Barnes and they've been comparing ASM. It's the fact that with Harvey Barnes, you don't have all these neat tricks and stuff like that. You have a lot of clever little 1-2s and intricate passes, but you also have the end product that backs it up. And I think one of the key stats that was put in over, if you look at the 4 people who've played on the wing for Newcastle last season, not including Jordan, because obviously he's not really classed as a winger, but you look at ASM, Anthony Gordon, Jacob Murphy, and also Miggy, and I think it came to the fact that he's still got more goals and assists in so many seasons than the 4 of them put together, which it says a lot. And obviously, you can turn around and you look. Yes, he had James Maddison, but does he have that fantastic supporting cast that Newcastle are going to have as well? So would he have more goals and assists to go with it as well? So it's interesting now. But one of the things we did bring, I did put upload, because obviously and we do like to try and do this on if obviously a few players and stuff, is the comparison between ASM and Harvey Barnes. Now, if you look, the green is ASM, and obviously the huge difference is that, as you can see on the right-hand side, that's the technical side of it. There's probably not many players in the Premier League who have that technical score and who will be able to rival Allan Saint-Maximin. But what you've got to look at is the fact that, yes, Harvey Barnes it's more, but the problem is with him being a winger, he's end product, and that's the thing that's really standing out. I don't know what you think on that, Pete.
Yeah, I'll get to my opinion in a second, but no, a great opinion from your perspective with regards to Barnes. Chris, what do you make of the Harvey Barnes situation? I'm going to ask you this outright: is it a signing that excites you, or is it something that, as one person put in the chat, could it potentially be a smokescreen?
Right. I don't even know where to start with this. Right. I'm gonna set my stall out early. Right. Okay. So my problem initially with Harvey Barnes, not that I've got this big beef with Harvey Barnes, I haven't, but
not all.
My initial issue with Harvey Barnes way back when, 6-12 months ago, whenever we were first linked, was people were talking about 50, 60, 70 million. And for me, I was just like, nah, not at all. Now, Harvey Barnes, to me, certainly numbers wise, to goals, assists, cannot argue. And he's done that in a very poor Leicester side, and credit to him. And is he an upgrade on what we've got at the moment? Yes. I think the stats will prove that. If Harvey Barnes is going for 25, 30 million, which is the assumed fee, I think it's a great deal. And I think, we should actively look to get that deal done. If it's going 50 and above, that's where I have my concerns with Harvey Barnes, because I feel like if we're in the 50 million echelon, it's like, well, I'd be looking at like a Chiesa or a Diaby. And that's not to say that I don't want Harvey Barnes, because if Eddie Howe wants Harvey Barnes, I want Harvey Barnes, because I totally trust Eddie, the coaching staff, the owners, everything. What I want to also add to that is, for me, like, and maybe I've thought about this quite a lot, as you can probably tell from the way I'm like describing this. But for me, I'm a little bit skeptical over this deal, because I just don't think we've seen a deal like this under this ownership. Somebody put something on Twitter the other day. I forget who it was, and I've applied to it. And then somebody wrote, no, it was along the lines of, we don't do deals like this. We don't air our dirty laundry, is it? We don't let other people know what we're doing, seemingly under this ownership. The likes of Trippier, done. Isak, done. And then we went through all the players, and then the one player who that didn't apply to was Botman. But if you remember, and again, anyone who sees my tweets will have seen this, Botman was like flirting with us online, so he was liking photos of him in a Newcastle shirt, and you know, he was engaging with Dad. So I don't really count that as being out in the press, because that was from the individual himself. But all the other deals that we've done since this new ownership have come in, nobody's known about. And this Harvey Barnes deal is going on and on and on. And I'm thinking, same with the Maddison deal. And Pete, if we if we do get to that later, I would like to hear your thoughts on Maddison. But there's something about this deal that doesn't ring true for me. And it's not because I'm saying I don't want him. It's not because I'm saying he's not good enough. And it's not because I'm saying that we're not interested. But even that article that, you know, you flashed up before, Pete, and it was like from Romano, and he's like, yeah, we're looking to get the deal done. We're going to sit down and we're going to thrash it out. And it's like, well, what are we waiting for? Yeah. What are we waiting for? Why is this not done? Because Leicester want to sell. He wants to come, allegedly, and we need a new winger. So I'm just thinking, when I was talking before about spinning plates, and I'm a bit like, is this one of these deals where we could push the button, we could get the deal done, but is there someone else there nagging away at us? And we're like, hang on a minute. Harvey Barnes is number 4 on the list. I've just made that up, by the way. I'm not saying he is number 4 on the list because I don't know. But is Harvey Barnes a little bit way down the list? And we're just, hang on a minute, let's just see if we can get him. Or let's just see what's going on with him. Or let's wait for that deal to go through and then we'll try and get him. Because to me, all this has come out in the media, which we've not seen with other deals. And everyone keeps going, yeah, we're in talks. Yeah, we're going to chat to them. Yeah, we're going to sort it. And it's like, well, what are we waiting for? Just do it. Because what's stopping us? People are saying we need to sell before we can buy. I don't believe that. That's not to say that I don't think we will sell to balance the books a little bit. But why have we got to sell before we can buy someone? Why not just get the deal done and just actively look to sell someone? As Richie rightly said, we've got until the end of August. So if we can get a deal done and we want him on the plane for the pre-season, get the deal done. What's the problem? And this is why I'm not convinced. I'm going to say it here live, 11th of July. I don't think we're going to sign Harvey Barnes. Just a good feeling I've got.
No, I think that's more than a fair assessment.
I think the other thing as well, Pete, just to finish on that, is obviously there's a big discussion obviously going in, obviously in the chat. Obviously we'll talk about Harvey Barnes. There's obviously the whole conversation that we've had about ASM and everything and stuff, and that's going on in the chat now as well. What you've got to remember is, obviously, and it might be worth going on to it now, because obviously it sort of links in, as well as obviously over the weekend was the ASM stuff came out about possibly being potentially being sold as an outgoing. Obviously, Luke Edwards broke that. I'll just get rid of that comment, and obviously we can see that better. But obviously that, and then I think it was Alfonso Leocardia. He also followed it up by mentioning that it would cost around 40 million with clubs in Saudi Arabia as well as Europe making contact with the players' representatives since the end of last season. And apparently interest was firmed up over the weekend. And obviously he goes back to Luke Edwards' article as well. And then obviously we've seen a lot of ASM videos out there as well where he's been in training. And then on his social media tonight, I don't know whether either of you lads have seen this, but he did actually put this. It was on social media before. He actually scores a fantastic goal. He cuts in from the left and he puts it in the top right-hand corner. And then he puts it, people can keep talking when they know nothing. I just keep working. So, look, there's a lot going on in there. Pete, I think it's pretty, we know how you feel about ASM and stuff. So, going off the Barnes conversation as well, do you think that they could be potentially going for Barnes so there's somebody already there for ASM? So that they could be literally spending the money they're already going to get in. So technically, there's nothing going off the budget that we've already had. And we, as Chris talked about, and obviously it's been mentioned in the chat tonight, that there's still smoke screen for something else for going on elsewhere. What do you think?
I love that word, smoke screen.
It's going to be I
think we started that, you know. I think we started that. I'm telling you, because we were talking about smoke screens, and we were saying, weren't we, a while back, that, you know, it could be a smoke screen, it could be a smoke screen.
It was after the Barella, wasn't it? It was after Barella.
Yeah, and then it's just, but even if you date back, Pete, you know, to Bruno, everyone was like Paqueta, and then bang, Bruno. And it was like, oh, I thought we were off to Paqueta. And there's so many different variables that happens, and we all of a sudden we're linked to one player, and then bam, we go and get that player that none of us were expecting. But anyway, sorry, Pete, go on. I could do another 20 minutes here. I'm going to stop.
No, but this is why we did it now.
Yeah,
you were right in the private chat. You were like, let's get this out now.
Yeah.
We've not even got to the questions yet. We do apologize, but we're going to get through your questions, no doubt about it. For me, first things first, Harvey Barnes. Stop like shit.
Sorry.
First things first, Harvey Barnes. I am absolutely shocked that we're in for him. And the reason being is because I was convinced that he was going to be a West Ham player. And I still believe there's a high chance that he becomes a West Ham player. And the reason being is because that deal, Lawless mentions it all the time, that deal has been linked with Harvey Barnes to West Ham since the back end of the season when they won the cup. That was done then. And I went on the Man City channel on Saturday and talked just on a really short show, and they asked me about Harvey Barnes, and I said exactly the same. I said, I'm shocked by it. I said, I'm convinced that he will be a West Ham player. And I do believe that the fact that this Rice deal has been delayed is part of the reason why West Ham haven't come in, because I genuinely think with West Ham coming in with 105 million and huge wages, they paid Paqueta like 200 grand a week. I think that could potentially swerve the deal that way. I do think Newcastle are interested in him. And I do think, just like James Maddison, Howe wants him. Why? Because they're English-based players. And when you're working with English-based players, you can get them up to speed a lot quicker. And I think that's part of the agreement maybe with Newcastle, with Ashworth and Howe. Yes, we'll get that talented foreign European player in Tonali, and we'll coax him in a little bit like we did with Bruno, but we'll get those established English players in and around where they can get up to speed and get up there straight away. Next thing, Harvey Barnes is a talented player, no doubt about it. There's actually, and the Geordies Down South chat, Segs on there, put this on not long ago, so I'll drop this up on here. And it's the comparison Maxi Barnes situation. The goals and the productivity is there for all to see. I tweeted it last week. It's there for all to see. He provides final ball, whether it's assists. Not too many assists this season, but previous seasons he's got that. He's got that in his locker. So he provides, but he's not. Let's just be honest. He's not.
I think the thing is with the assists as well, Pete. This obviously you've always used this for ASM. You can put the ball into the box and fantastic, but the person on the end of it might muck it up. And obviously, you look at Leicester this last season with Daka, Vardy, and Iheanacho, they weren't firing. So for all we know, he could have done exactly what Maxi's done in the past, and then obviously it hasn't been his fault really. So there you go.
Yeah, ASM should have had 10 assists last season. And I tell you what, everyone would be looking at him. The people that don't particularly rate him would be looking at him very differently if those players put the ball in the net. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But regardless, in the years gone by, Harvey Barnes has proved it. But go back to the point that I was going to make. Harvey Barnes isn't Moussa Diaby. He isn't Chiesa. And the fact that we're linked with those players almost discards Harvey Barnes. I think if Harvey Barnes was the initial attraction, the initial link, before these boys were linked with us, I think a section of the Newcastle fan base would be a little bit more excited. But I understand why they're not. Because when you've got Moussa Diaby, who's outperforming Barnes, really, and Federico Chiesa, who's just, he's a supreme talent when fit. He's a supreme talented player. So I completely understand why fans are thinking, well, I want Chiesa. Maybe it's a smokescreen, and it could well be. I'll be honest. If it is a smokescreen, it's a hell of a good one. It's a hell of a good one. And Newcastle will need a lot of praise for smokescreening the fact that they're going to go and sign those players or one of those players. But it's a really, really weird situation, because the question and the point that you put out there, Chris, is absolutely right. If we want Harvey Barnes, and it's the 25 to 35 million that has been reported, why isn't he already wearing black and white? Why isn't he already signed for the club? And it goes back to another point that I'm just going to put this picture on here now. I think potentially it's this reason. And NUFC Gallagate put this on there. I think they must have been the other day, but I saw this and I thought this was really interesting. You look at those players, all those players who want out the door, and look at how much wages they command. And it's a lot. And there was already talk at the back end of last season that our wage bill is too high. It's too high for the players that we've got. And we need to get rid of some deadwood. And it wouldn't surprise me if the reason why we can't justify a Harvey Barnes coming in at a 35 whatever million is because we need other players off the wage bill first. Maybe they want a Harvey Barnes in, but they want they basically want Harvey Barnes' wages to be supplemented by the guys that are leaving the club, because they're leaving the big money and the big wages for something bigger and better. And it goes back to a point that I mentioned to you, Chris. And I said, Harvey Barnes isn't a Diaby or a Federico Chiesi signing. It's not. But you're going to have to pay more money to get them into the club, whether it's wages or whether it's transfer fee. So for me, I see Harvey Barnes as, and it sounds horrible saying, and I don't mean to say it like this, but it's almost like the more budget signing. It's a budget type of signing. It's a great deal at a great price for a player that actually is about to hit his prime, and we could get the absolute very best out of him. But what you don't get is huge wages, and what you don't get is a huge transfer fee. Why? Is because maybe they want to spend that on another attacking midfielder, a player that we don't know about, that might cost a little bit of money in wages or transfer fee. Or do they want to go out there and get a 30 to 35 million pound left back, a starter, a Champions League ready left back? There's a player that we're talking about that's potentially been linked with us today, in fact. Could that be that the wages and the transfer fee is going to be waiting for him? Or is it a Shaw replacement, a centre-back, someone that's going to be coming in like Botman and be the commanding centre-back that takes us forward? This is what I think Newcastle are maybe, in my opinion, just on my observations, are juggling right now. They're juggling the wages. They're juggling transfer fees. They're trying to make sure that everything fits. And they probably want Diaby and Chiesa and probably would have signed them by now, but they're looking at, if they go and get them on big wages, they might not be able to get the guy that they want left back or centre back. And it might need to all fit together. So they're looking at alternatives and where it fits. And they might have not punched the deal through, like you've mentioned, Chris, and quite rightly so, is because they're seeing how the land lies. Like you said, this is still early days. Still early days. We've got time. We've got until the end of August to get these deals done. So maybe they're just seeing how the land lies. They've already got the thumbs up for Barnes. Barnes wants Newcastle ahead of every other club. Let's see how the land lies. Let's see how it lies after a week or two. And then we go in and make our decision. But that's just my observation. But I completely agree with points that you've made. Like, it could well be a smokescreen. It could well be that we're holding things because we want the more high-profile player, but we're seeing whether it budget-wise and transfer fee-wise. And look, we've got the money to buy all of those players right now. Let's be honest. Yeah. The club has. Yeah. But actually, to fit into FFP, wages, all the rest of it, and the wages are a big thing on it, maybe they just have to be a little bit smart on it. We've just got to sit back and observe everything. But that's just my opinion on it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just me.
Hey, just before, obviously, we're rounding off the Harvey Barnes talk, and it was just Lee Errington just put a really good comment in the chat, and I think it's a really good point. It sort of backs up something that I don't know. I think we discussed it briefly a couple of weeks ago. Lads, this sounds more like it could be agent talk to try and get the deal done for Barnes to West Ham. Like you've said, Pete, if it's 25 million, right? Surely get it done. It's a no-brainer. We said, as Chris mentioned earlier on, 40 to 50 million. No way. Harvey Barnes isn't that sort of player. He doesn't. That's why you start to talk Chiesa and Diaby money because of who they are, their international experience, Champions League experience, all that sort of stuff. And it goes back to the question we actually discussed this briefly a few weeks ago on TalkSport when Eni Oluku mentioned about being a sporting director, and she was talking about the Declan Rice deal to Arsenal, and then Man City came in, where a club will turn around and ring up another club saying, "Oh, will you put a bid in?" And it like lifts the price up of the team that really, really want him. And as you saw, Arsenal had to go with a higher price. Now, the reason why I'm just putting this up, so I think it's a good little comment that Liam mentions. If Newcastle really want them, just go in and bang, do it for 25 million. However, everyone keeps going. You mentioned it, Pete, about what Lawless has been going on and saying about the Harvey Barnes deal. Apparently, the reason why they can't get it done is because they haven't got the money from the Declan Rice deal. So that's been dragging on and still hasn't been confirmed yet. And then I think it was a Times report, or the one that you just mentioned, Fabrizio Romano had mentioned that the deal will be getting done next week. So you start to think, is it? Is the Newcastle deal going to come in? Or is this where you turn on and it goes back to what happened with the James Maddison? James Maddison was coming to Newcastle, he was caught, and was slightly, and then all of a sudden, Spurs came in. Is it something like this where, is he really going to be going to West Ham, but Newcastle are being used as the model to try and get the real team, the real player out there to become active? And just as he said, agent talk to try and push through a sale elsewhere, and perhaps Harvey Barnes isn't on the radar. I don't know. Just a thought.
Could well be. But for me, I still think West Ham are well in this race for Harvey Barnes. I think they're waiting for this Rice deal to go through. But look, if Harvey Barnes comes through the door, I think he's a super talented player. I really do. He's not that high profile name that Diaby or Chiesa is, but he's a high profile player in the league, in the Premier League, and he's proven it. But sometimes we get really excited and we want that player that's the foreign player, the standout player, and sometimes we all get kind of wrapped up in that, and we watch them play and we know how good they are. We've watched them on Champions League stages. Chiesa played in the Euros final and was tearing England apart. So we know, we've seen it firsthand how good he can be. Harvey Barnes hasn't quite done it on that level yet, but I think he's capable. But I think it's all to play for all three players. I genuinely do. But I don't want Harvey Barnes to be dismissed if he does walk through the door with Newcastle fans, because I think he's a talented player, and I genuinely think Harvey Barnes going into his peak could be a really, really big player for the club if he's to sign. But who knows? It's an interesting one. You've got Fabrizio Romano, who's very much normally on the button with most things, saying that it's going to be done. The Times and various other ones are saying the same. What's really interesting, though, is none of the North East journalists are talking with any real confidence about this, that it's actually happening. So again, it divides people's opinions, and it makes people second guess it, which is why we discussed it right now. But look, this one will rumble on, that's for sure. No doubt. But look, we've got 460 in the chat. Amazing numbers for tonight's show.
Only 175 likes though, so guys, get on there, just give it a little like. Obviously, subscribe for free as well. You'll get notifications whenever the shows are going to go live at half an hour before, and it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And if you really love the content, like some people have been doing, you can become a member. Tonight, I just want to say a big thanks. We have a new member tonight who joined, and that's Jed Headley. Thank you very much, mate. All appreciated. All the lads appreciate every single one who wants to support the channel in any single way, shape, or form. Which remember, super chats are open as well. And I also want to give Stephen Fairburn a shout out as well. He's donated another membership tonight in the chat, and he's donated it to 9NUFC. So, Stephen, much appreciate again the support, and also to all the other members who get the benefit of that as well. Thank you very much. There you go, Pete.
Bobby, my ASMR is done. Around Harvey Barnes, it's over. It's now time for questions. So, Richie, what have we got in the starred comments section?
Well, what have we got for now? Anyway, there's loads in there to get through. There's a couple there I might have to leave towards the end because it could go on for a while. Right, we'll start with the first one that's on there who got the chat in really, really early, and that's GK. He put down that, sorry, let's have a look. Among right back, right centre back, left centre back, and wing forward, I'm giving you the ability to pick one statement signing, with the other two being more squad level, great age players. Who do you pick?
Oof.
Who wants that one?
GK.
I'll tell you what. Why don't we all pick a statement signing for each position? Like, so, Pete, you go for the right centre back. Chris, you go for the left centre back, and I'll go for the winger. And then obviously we could go from there.
Do you think GK means left back? I'm only thinking that because we do need a left back. Like at the moment, we've got Botman and Bain left centre back, haven't we? And maybe Dummett as well. Does he mean left back, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know whether he's in the chat still watching. If he wants to clarify that, he can.
GK, if you're watching, mate, yeah.
But Pete, right centre back.
There's one that I think is ready to go if we're able to sign him. We've been linked with him. Jean-Claire Todibo. He's ready to go. He needs his move. I think he'd be a fantastic signing for Newcastle.
Chris, if he's put down left centre back, so go with left centre back. So this is going to be a tricky one for you because a statement sign that's going to oust Botman from the starting lineup.
This is what I mean. Yeah, this is what I mean. I do think he means left back, but left centre back. God, because we've not really spoke about any left centre backs, have we?
I'd go left back, Chris. I'd go left back. I think it's a position we need.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you reckon? Would you pay if you're happy with that?
I'm probably going to surprise you both here. I would say one of two, and the one of two I would pick. Oh no, actually no. Go on, one of two. I would go, and we've spoken about these players before, but I would go for Cucurella or Chilwell. Because I think Chelsea will be willing to let either go. I think we'll get them at a reasonable price. And I'm kind of more leaning towards Cucurella now. But purely because I don't think we've seen the best of him at Chelsea. And Chelsea were persuaded to pay 50+ million for him from Brighton. Dan Ashworth knows all about him. And allegedly, don't know how true it is, allegedly he'd be available from 25 to 30 million. And I think that would be a good signing. So I will. Oh, hang on. Jason Scott saying Cucurella wants 175 grand a week. Maybe not.
Probably on that now, to be fair.
Yeah, maybe not then. Hang on. Give me a sec. Okay, well, that being the case, we'll tell you what, just because I like this player, I don't know whether we get him or not. Tyreek Mitchell from Crystal Palace. I really like Tyreek Mitchell.
Probably.
So yeah, that would be my left back.
Stuff. Richie,
just before I go on to it, get the announcement. Get it ready.
Super chat received.
Mark Taylor, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Toon fans, zero negativity on this channel. This is real content. Enjoying. I didn't, and I'm an Arsenal fan. Just so you enjoy. Yeah, brilliant. These boys are real. Mark, much appreciated.
Really nice,
it's really nice of you to say that, especially from a non-Toon fan as well. Obviously, I don't know whether you've followed from, Pete from being on with Dan Potts and the 12-Man podcast, possibly. But look, we appreciate having you here. And the donation, second to none. Thank you very much, mate. All appreciate. Going back to the original question, we're going on the winger sort of thing, and it's a tough one for me because I've been on the DRB train for a while. Is that right? Because and the reason why I'm going to go for the right winger is because I still don't think the left winger is the priority, because we've got a few players who can cover, because of that word that Eddie Howe likes is versatile. Whereas, you look at Miggy and then you look at Murphy, they're your two right wingers, really. And that, for me, that's where we really need the upgrade on the winger. So you look at DRB, and then you've got obviously, and the other person I'm torn between is obviously Chiesa, because the day we sat down and had the after the takeover came through, and me and Chris had a nice chat about upcoming, who could we target realistically and stuff like that. And Chiesa was one of those ones that was for me was a realistic target that could, be a statement sign like your Trippier, like your Bruno was. So I'm really torn with that, but I think just because of how injury prone he's been in the last few years, I saw, and obviously the national that Chiesa said, I'd probably have to lead toward Moussa Diaby. Do we want to come up with one left field sign for each of the other ones? Just not necessarily for each position, but just a one that you think that would be a great age, not cost a lot, sort of thing that would enhance the squad on what we've got, but not break the bank, perhaps. This is the difficult one, isn't it? Really, lad.
It is. Just a player that we like, or a player that perhaps has been linked, but he wouldn't cost too much, or something like that.
Do you like for example, the other day I mentioned Angelino was a fantastic backup at the left back, which wouldn't cost a lot of money. Unfortunately, Romano said, "Here we go." Before he's gone to Galatasaray for literally nothing from Leipzig. So I think that was obviously someone I mentioned the other day. Who would I think that's? It depends on what your class is. Not really breaking the bank, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's
any good free transfers out there? Should we throw a free transfer in?
What about this guy?
Yes, well, he's been linked, hasn't he? Yeah.
What about this guy, Dachi Kamada? Was odds on to go to AC Milan. Now AC Milan have pulled out the deal because of their leadership structure changing. He's now available on a free transfer. Plays in the midfield role, attacking midfield, can play centre mid. If I believe he scored 9 goals last season, 6 assists. He can do it. Free transfer. Is it the worst move in the world? If it's doable, I don't know.
Interesting.
It's a good shout. Obviously, we had brought him because he had been mentioned at in the last transfer window. Where obviously we have him 6 months on his contract, and obviously with AC Milan pulling out of the supposed deal that had been done. It's interesting, isn't it? Going back on the talk about free transfers and stuff like that.
It's a tough one.
It is. Do you know there's people putting in the chat there? I don't think I'd go for him, but he's on a free transfer. You're talking Zaha. You've got your Premier League experience and experience international as well. Obviously, his wages might cost a lot, and obviously that would be a thing with our budget, considering we don't really splash out ridiculous weekly wages and stuff. So
another lefty.
Do you know what? I have to tell you what. We'll go on another question, but we'll think of that one, and we'll come back to that one as the last question of the show. Who would your off the radar cheap signing that a great age? Chris, great age. Right.
On that subject, Rich, and not to spin off too much, but do we know if Rashford signed a new deal yet?
It was on the report today that he is signing a new deal with Man United. It was on TalkSport reported earlier on today. Yeah.
So, well, that's weird. Yeah, I hadn't heard anything. I didn't know that. I hadn't heard anything because I know he's only got a year left, hasn't he? We've seen what happened with De Gea, so I'm assuming they don't want that to happen again. But
someone just put De Gea in there. Would you take him on a free? Would you take De Gea on a free?
Not on 350 grand, I wouldn't.
Great answer.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, we'll think about that, Rich. We'll pin that one and come back to it.
Yeah. Mighty Wins actually put an interesting point here, which is good to go on. Anyone worried that the large influx of expensive new faces might disrupt the team spirit which carried us through last season? For me, I think when we've highlighted this quite a few times when we've done the shows before, when we've been doing the full transfer, the one thing that they look for is the quality, that they're not going to upset the apple cart. It's one of the personality traits that they look for. They're going to be hardworking. They're not going to be prima donnas and stuff like that, which we've seen before at the club and stuff. So I don't know, Pete, Chris, are you on the same sort of wavelength as that?
Go on, Chris. Go for it.
I'm not concerned at all, because I don't believe that Eddie Howe would allow that to happen. I think we've got a big emphasis on personality. I think people have spoken in the past, haven't they, about a no dickheads policy. I firmly believe the players with the right attitude will be coming in, and I don't think. Do you know what? Even if they did bring in a bad egg, I just don't think the rest of the squad would allow it. I just genuinely don't think they'd allow it. So I'll be honest, I'm not concerned by that at all.
No, me neither. I do think that, like you said, Chris, Eddie Howe's very selective on his players, and he wants those players that are right for the squad, right for the team. You look at Dan Burn getting a new deal, Richie getting a new deal, Dummett. He wants players that may not offer something on the pitch week in, week out, but will offer something that will make a difference in the background. And I think he's been spot on with all of his signings so far. I don't think he's made a mistake as yet. So let him continue, is what I say. Interesting one. Tom Dixon's put on there, and sorry to take the star.
That's right. Go for it.
Sadio Mane, would he be one that would upset the apple cart? Talented boy. We know he's got Premier League experience, but would you have him on a cheap deal? Tom Dixon saying 20 million euros. I wouldn't be surprised if he left for that sort of price. But would he be a one that would upset the apple cart, in your opinion?
I'd jump in on this one. I would love Sadio Mane at Newcastle because I think he's a player with the right attitude. I think he's actually, certainly from the reports I've read and a lot of Liverpool fans who I know, rated him so highly, and apparently he's a true professional. My biggest concern with Sadio Mane is his wages, because I think Sadio Mane would want at least 150 to 200 grand a week, and I'm not sure that would kind of fit in with where we're going. Could he still do a job in the Premier League? Absolutely. Would he look great in the black and white on that left wing? Absolutely. I just don't know. I don't know. Although some would argue that could be the marquee signing that PIF have been allegedly talking about. Like if we brought in Sadio Mane, there'd be a lot of money. The remainder of the top seven, which I'm now going to call them, the remainder of the top seven would be very worried, in my opinion, if we brought in Sadio Mane, particularly Liverpool, because they know what he's capable of. But I just don't see it.
I don't know if you boys saw that. Bournemouth have got us down in their ticketing tiering. We're part of the top seven now. And it was put on Twitter probably about a week and a half ago, and there was a lot of anger and frustration from a lot of Villa fans and West Ham fans and a lot of those fans that didn't quite make that top tier. But we were down. We're now down with some teams as part of that top tier, top seven ticketing.
It's right though, Pete, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, and this isn't us being biased or having rose-tinted glasses on. We were playing some fantastic football last season, and when Newcastle come to town, there's fantastic following that come to the stadium, and the performances. We were the fact that Sky and BT and Amazon, we were on the telly so much last season. But the reason why is because we had that attitude, thanks to Eddie Howe, where we go to every game, we try and win. We're not sitting in. We're not trying to, nick a point and go home. We go there to win football matches, and whether people like it or not, neutrals and even home fans to a degree will enjoy it because it's a good game of football. It's not just let's park 11 men behind the ball and you try and score against us. We go everywhere we go to try and win. And I think I can see why we're in the why we're classed as the Big Seven. Is that the picture, Pete, that little Dan from the Wolves podcast went mad at because he's in the bottom tier? Is that right? Was it that picture? Yeah. That was harsh. That was really harsh.
It follows on from what Bruno was saying as well, though. I don't know if anyone else saw this, but he mentioned that obviously go back to last season. Newcastle got the first final since obviously when we got the FA Cup finals last season. We also got the Champions League for the first time in 20 odd years as well last season. So, and then you've got to look at obviously Spurs. When was the last time they were in a final? When obviously Spurs didn't qualify for the Champions League. And obviously both of these have just answered Mark Taylor. Obviously we know as an Arsenal fan, going from his Super Chat before. with the so-called Big Six now down to the Big Five because Spurs are finished, how long do you give it for before Newcastle join the table? So there's a few people out there already saying Newcastle. You know, Rory Jennings has been really, if anyone's been watching any of his content on YouTube the last few days over the weekend and stuff, he's really been going behind Newcastle as dark horses, not just for, the Big Six, top four. He's really concerned Newcastle potentially win the league shortly, because he said, obviously, he looked at all the deals that came in. He went, nah, not really world beaters and that. And he went, the fact that they've walked to AC Milan and literally dragged their star crown jewel out by the hand this last few weeks, is a kick in the teeth to the Big Six, because that's a statement of intent, that deal, to go and do that. Because the other people weren't really at big clubs, or Trippier's coming towards the end of his career. Him to get the crown jewel out of AC Milan, who was their poster boy, and an AC Milan fan growing up, and to actually drag him out and be the part of the future project for God knows how many years, is a big statement of intent. So I think you answered that there anyway. Regards that, I think Spurs. There's a lot going on, Spurs, especially if Harry Kane, talks don't go well with Ange. He could be on his way somewhere else. You never know. Right, let's have a look. There's loads coming in and questions on here. Let's have a look which one we'll go to next. Light-hearted one here from Tim King. Not transfer related, it's just, you want to know about us? Question loaded, lads. Favourite takeaway and Richie, favourite restaurant in the Toon? Go on, Pete, we'll start with you.
Favorite takeaway? Oh.
And to be fair, why do you open it up as in make it a generic one? Because the lads have obviously beaten Newcastle before. We all dined out in one of our favourite restaurants in the town when we were all up here. On the Saturday night, we all went to Uno's, which is a very fan favourite in the town. Yeah,
for all the reasons. Pete loves that. Yeah. So open it up. Go on, lads.
Takeaway. I don't know if you got them where you guys are from, but up northwest, there's a restaurant called Africana. Honestly, like, it's not really a takeaway because the food is like quality. It's proper quality. It's not like a takeaway. But every so often, me and the wife, we treat ourselves to an Africana, and it's absolutely outstanding.
Chris?
I'd struggle to name a specific takeaway, but I'll go very generic. It's a bit of a cop-out, but if I was to pick a takeaway, I would always pick an Indian. I love it. I love a nice curry, so I would say Indian, but I do like Chinese as well. But yeah, I'd say Indian for me.
Yeah, I'd side with you on that one, because we like a good Indian occasionally. Not often we do get it, but I think that's probably one of the reasons why you enjoy it more, because you don't get it often or something like that. So
what was the one that we went to in Newcastle? Because that was nice.
Oh, yeah, that was on by the Akenside, wasn't it? Over the road from the Akenside.
What was it called now?
What was it called? That was it, because we were going somewhere, weren't we? And then the girls were like, "Yeah, we've booked a table in there," and it was like, "How sounds like them."
Case is here, she's laughing.
we just did what we were told. Keisha made the order. That was it. It was done. It's done. But it was lovely. Gotta say.
Yeah, it was nice. That was the one in there.
Yeah. Cool. Right, let's have a look. Let's get back to Newcastle talk on that one. Right, Drew. Question for you. Pete, I'll come to you with this one. Would you give up ASM for, say, Hernandez from AC Milan or Chiesa? Because he sure would.
Oh, come on. That's a crazy question. Of course. You would. You'd be mad if you didn't. I love ASM. I do. But if you're getting Hernandez from AC Milan, you're getting arguably the best left back in the world. If you're getting Chiesa, a fit Chiesa, you're getting one of the most frightening attacking wingers in Europe. Like, you can't say no to that. As much as you love Maxi, and you boys know how much I love Maxi, you can't say no to that, because You know, Chiesa, okay, he's not really played in the last year because he was ACL injury, but once he gets back up to speed, he will be frightening for whatever team he plays for. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, right. Let's have a look. Let's have a quick one for. Oh, Ian Barron's put an interesting little twist in here. Chris, I'll go to you on this one. If they sign Barnes, they could do a resale possibility.
I saw him put that in there earlier. Well, how old is he, Chris?
26.
25, I think he is. He's a year younger than Maxi.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, great age.
Great
Yeah,
age.
do you know what?
How are you there saying that? Picks every time we question 26, you go, you wish you were 26 again. So I don't know what you're about.
Hey, I'm already doing this. I think it's a great age, but I don't know what other people think. Because we've had people in the chat that we've had, oh, so-and-so is 25, so-and-so is 26. Oh, yeah, they were an all right age. 25, 26.
25, 26.
Come on, man.
Jeez.
They've got like 8-9 years left in the game at least.
Yeah. Hey, tell you what though, boys, I think I can speak for you both, can I? I can definitely speak for Pete. Hopefully I can speak for Rich. Hey, down the road in Everton, they're signing 38-year-olds. So, hey, there's still time for me. Still time.
Who's
Just saying.
Who are they signing?
Ashley Young.
Ashley Young.
What?
Mate, it's practically done. Romano's saying, here we go. 38-year-olds. Mate, and then the one position they probably don't need, and that they've got Seamus Coleman and they've got Nathan Patterson. They're like, yeah, do you know what? Let's bring Ashley Young in as well. Free transfer. Let dice ball begin.
I'm sorry, Elisa, but come on. It's time. Get him down. Get him down next year. Get him down. Come on, it's time. Jesus.
Mad, isn't it? It's mad.
It's mad.
But in response to Ian Ballin's question, yeah, it's a really good point, because we saw the job that Chris Wood did for us, in keeping us in the league. It weakened Burnley. He come in the January, really helped, and then obviously the following season didn't go quite to plan, but then we sold him on. I personally think if we bring in Harvey Barnes, I would be shocked if we sold him within 3 or 4 years. I'd be shocked. Because I think he'd be a player for the future. We've already said he's probably an upgrade on what we've got at the minute. So I think Eddie Howe would want to work with him. I don't think the trajectory would be that big in that we get rid of him. He would probably become the squad player once we get rid of the other players, and then we bring in the higher quality players. So Barnes would end up maybe being a sub midfielder or something. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, it's an interesting question.
Yeah, it was interesting. I've just seen in the chat, Lisa Moore, which has put Ashley Young, not such a great age.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Love it.
Oh no, Trulls has just said Everton are looking at Weghorst as well.
Please, is what I'm saying. Please do
I did see something about I mentioned on Sky before. They possibly tried to link that Dan Juma. That possibly, because obviously he was linked, he was meant to be going there, and of course he went to Spurs when he realised obviously how dire situation we're going to have to speak to Frank Lampard. But
would you do that? Would you do that? I know we kind of did it with Laurent Remy. We did it a little bit. He kind of went to QPR, then we got him back on there. But would you do that really? Like he's literally already took pictures in the shirt and then fobbed you off. And would you then go and look for him the year after? That just has recipe for disaster like written all over it. I don't know if I'm wrong in thinking that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think once that ship sailed, it needs to be forgotten.
Benny just said that as well about Remy back in the day. Yeah.
As much as we liked him and as good as he did, you can't really go back there.
Couple of little quick ones here just to get out of the way. Gary Milligan, even loaded lads, he wants to know, have we picked a date for our next fix? The two discussions are underway.
Yes.
But as Luke Edwards will be reporting in the morning, we'll probably know a bit further in a week or so's time. There you go.
Don't say that because then it won't happen. It won't happen then.
And I just wanted to, obviously, it was picked up on in the chat a little bit earlier on. And if I'll just find out where the comment is gone, and it was tongue-in-cheek, obviously something that was mentioned. Mr. Sapagav, if you are still watching, yes, mate, it was tongue-in-cheek. We know we love it. We've all got a bit of personality with crack here. We all take, don't take things to heart and stuff. I have a little bit of a laugh. So yes, mate, it was. It did. I said to the lads in the chat, do you know what? When you're doing the comments, and Pete, you'll all know this. It's impossible to listen to every single little thing that comes in when you're doing something else. And look, blokes can't multitask. So there you go. You only answer the question.
That's a rumour, Rich. That's a rumour, by the way.
Yeah, don't throw us all into the same bracket, mate. Come on. We could all do it. We've all done it. We could all multitask. We do it every week. The amount of times that we're still talking and yet we're not getting pictures, getting stuff that's just been breaking. Come on, we don't
do too bad. We don't do too bad.
We don't too bad, mate. No, you're right.
No. Look, obviously, there's two little ones I've kept, and it's literally because it's content we want to talk about, which you brought up, and it's literally, I thought it's a good way to round off the show with these last two questions. And obviously, Pete, you've already got the names in the chat. Obviously, centre back that's been linked over the weekend, and also a surprise left back that came out from somewhere today as well. That you mentioned in the chat. So, do you want to get onto that?
Definitely. So, first and foremost, what broke, I assume over the weekend, it must have been because I'd not seen it personally, but other outlets have reported it. But I've just got this picture up here. Is that AS Monaco's ace Axel Disasi, right centre back, has apparently agreed personal terms with Newcastle, but there is ongoing discussions about a potential deal along with Monaco. So that is something that is potentially in the works. There's been lots of talk about that from various different sources with regards to how far along that deal is, but that's just something that's out there at this moment in time. But look, whilst Richie's just off for a second, Chris, Axel Disasi has been linked with Newcastle before. Actually, it was in January. Linked with Newcastle in January, very tentatively, not with any concrete, but know much about him. As a centre back, in your opinion.
Yeah, well, Pete, you probably know what I'm going to say here. I'm going to deflect this back to you. I'm going to boomerang it back to you because I'll be honest, I don't know much about Disasi. I saw the link. I've seen a few little clips of him. People were posting stuff about him. Certainly, to me, looking at the raw skills and the attributes, he seems to fit the profile. But I know briefly when we touched upon it that you had an opinion on him. So I'm gonna boomerang it back to you, mate, because I'll be honest, I don't want to start trying to con all the viewers at home by pretending I know all about Disasi, because I'll be honest, I don't.
Richie, before I say a little something on Disasi, have you got an opinion on Disasi? Have you watched anything of him at AS Monaco this season?
I've seen a little bit, probably a little bit more than what Chris has, to be honest. What I have is he's a big, strong boy, put it that way. He does read the game pretty well. The one thing I'm not too sure on, obviously this is something that we, and a few people mentioned it in the chat now coming through, is his speed. Not too quite sure how fast he is. They're saying that Todibo's quicker than him. He's good. I think he scored 6 goals last season, though, which is a fantastic return for a centre half, mind.
Yeah, it is.
So that's good. I think obviously I know you mentioned that you saw, I think it was football transfers that you brought up before. I actually think the man himself actually mentioned it as well. I do believe Romano mentioned
Big Fab, really?
Yeah. I'll just see if I can find it in the. Yeah, he did. He did. Man United and Newcastle. It was.
Oh,
Here you go himself. No bids yet. Obviously, Newcastle approach player side this week, expected to make contact with Monaco. Obviously, there's a lot. I think there's a lot of potential different options Newcastle could go down here. You've mentioned yourself, Todibo there. Lacroix, someone that's been mentioned as well. Disasi's, and so there's some fantastic young players out there who will fit the mould that Newcastle are looking for in this. But it was interesting that it came from the man Romano, and obviously I take you mustn't have seen that, Pete. He's a decent player, and he would really enhance that thing. I think we actually got brought up one of our lovely comparisons as well. We have, from SofaScore. Obviously, everyone keeps asking about comparison between him and Shaw. So if you look at that, there's defensively, tackle, it's very similar. It's more he's developed on the technical side. He's a little bit more ahead of Fabian Shaw, which is pretty interesting because technically we know what he's like for his ball playing abilities. So it's a little bit of an upgrade on that. So it fits the mold that what we're looking for. So it is interesting on that one. But there, Pete, you obviously know a little bit about him as well. So
I've watched a little bit of him. I just said to Chris before when you're off, he was actually tentatively linked with us in January. So, of course, as I do with any French player, I have a quick chat with Lee and just say, look, what's your opinion on so and so? And look, for me, you raised a really good point, Richie. Is that he has some of the attributes that Fabian Shaw lacks. So physicality, big, strong in the air. Fabian Shaw wins his fair share, but he also gets battered every game, which we already know about. And Daz, who's on holiday, by the way, hopefully you're having a good holiday, mate.
Every 5 minutes in the chat, isn't it? When there's a match on, you can guarantee there's the bandaged emoji and they've got Shaw next to it every single time of Daz.
So we know that, and he puts his body on the line, which is what we love about Shaw. But Axel Disasi, big, like you said, he's big, physical, puts himself about. He is a proper attacking centre back. He drives forward, and because of his physicality, he drives forward with pace and power. He likes to get into the box. He likes to get balls into the box. Set pieces, good, which is why I think he's scored as many goals as he scored this season. And he's a risk player. And this is what I had a conversation with Lee about back in January. And then again, actually, again in this summer, but not related to Newcastle when he was linked with Man United. Because I was surprised when that link came about. And to be fair, he's been in and around the French national team. Lee has reservations about him, which I found really interesting because he watches him more than I do. He says for a player of his ability, he believes that he should have developed further by now. He should be further on in his development than he is. And the fact that he's an all-action, he likes to get forward, he likes his trickery on the ball, he likes to do a little bit of what Shaw does, but maybe a little bit more so. He then makes mistakes. And there's an error-prone element to his game. And he says he needs to, in his opinion, he thinks if he's going to be a Premier League player, whichever club he goes to, he needs to eradicate that. He needs to get that out of his game. But at the moment, he still has that as part of his game, and he believes that's what's letting him down. I haven't personally seen that, but I haven't watched as much of him as he has. So for me, I'm listening to him and I'm going, okay. It was interesting because he was on Side TV's channel a few weeks ago when they were linked with him heavily, and he kind of said something very similar. So that's my only kind of reservation about him. I've seen the quality, the physicality, and I'm thinking that's what we need. That's what we're missing. Alongside Botman would be great. He's got a great switch ball, just like Botman. Botman does it from the left. Axel can do it from the right. It'd be perfect. We've got mix up in our play. Both players can drive forward. Great alternative. In Lee's opinion, and this is obviously his own opinion, he feels that Todibo, although not as more attackingly direct as Disasi, is ready to go as a first team player in a Premier League team. He believes he's more ready and first team ready made than Disasi. But that's just his opinion. That's one person's opinion that watches both players in a little bit of detail. But I'm just intrigued, actually, because like you said, you put the Fab Romano stuff on. I missed it all weekend, so I didn't see that. So it might well be further down the line than I thought it would be. So who knows? But yeah, what he said was to close on that Lee felt that if Disasi was coming in, he'd be a backup to Shaw, more so than an eventual replacement. But if Todibo came in, he'd be more of a first choice, ready to take the team forward. But again, that's just one person's opinion.
Interesting. The other person that we was mentioned, and I'll find the question in the chat, and obviously, Pete, I know you starred this for later on as a potential. It's off Kev T, and he mentioned about Bueno. Sorry, not that one. That's the wrong one. Sorry, about Bueno, Kinder Bueno from Wolves, wasn't it, mate?
Kinder Bueno, I love it.
When you said Bueno, I was looking at Bruno and I was thinking, Bueno? Why is he saying Bueno?
I think I might have got rid of the comment. Oh, that's there. 9 goals. There you go.
That's it, mate.
Yeah.
I knew I'd seen it. Bueno.
Linked exactly. So 9 goals has seen what Fraser Fletcher put out today. He understands that fullback Hugo Bueno has made the list of potential fullbacks. I'll be honest with you, in my opinion, if he is on the list, I think he probably is way down the list. I don't see him as a first choice Newcastle United left back. But I think he'd probably be within a pool of players that we're looking at. I'll be honest with you, I'm not even going to lie. When I saw that link, I didn't know who he was. I had no idea who he was. Hugo Bueno, never heard of him.
I've never heard of Bueno.
Yeah, I'd heard more of Kinder Bueno than Hugo Bueno, and that's not saying that he's not a quality player or could be a quality player. I just hadn't heard of him, so I don't know whether you boys were a little bit the same.
Yeah, it was a total left field link. I thought it's, you look at more, as I think it was mentioned there, Aiton Uri. I know that's someone that Chris really likes. He's mentioned them a lot of times before. That would have been the natural link for me from Wolves. Another link of someone that we mentioned as well. I noticed it signed a new contract over the weekend, so you might have missed this, Pete, but Anthony Robinson signed a new deal at Fulham, so that's someone that won't be moving anywhere either, which is someone we've talked about during Fully Loaded Transfer Show. So
Darren, that watches the channel, will be absolutely delighted with that, because he's been banging on for about 6 months about, no, Anthony Robinson, we don't need him, he's not good, because I think he's got family members that are Fulham fans, and he gets to watch him sometimes. He's not a big fan at all, so I think he'll be very happy with that. Sorry to interrupt, there was a really interesting one here that I want to get your thoughts on. I've already got my answer to this. Tom Dixon. Riyad Mahrez has 2 years left on his contract. Do you think he'll remain at City or go elsewhere? Now, I'm sorry. He's one of my favourite ever Premier League players. I don't care that he's 32. I'll take him right now. But wages aside, all the rest of it, what do you think, boys?
I think, to be fair, wages is probably one of the things is the stumbling block, that and the age. I think that's probably the only 2 things that will be the stumbling block from Newcastle turn around and saying, let's get the deal done. It was interesting. There was a conversation on TalkSport yesterday. It was with I can't remember who the presenter was, but it was with Danny Murphy as the co-pundit, and he turned around. Actually, it was Andy Goldstein. It was there on the drive last night, and they was talking about Mahrez. You look at him; he was top scorer, not last season, obviously the season before, and then you look at this season, he was in and out, and he says, and they asked him, would you take him as part of your team for next year? And he says, and then Danny Murphy went, for a start, the one thing that he's got over everybody, he's got the best first touch in the Premier League, full stop. Class. The way he brings the ball down the outside of his left foot and he puts it into the path that he wants to run as well. Obviously, you're cutting in from the right as well, and you put it on your left, control the outside left foot, and you go into the place you want to attack. It's just complete next level, and there's hardly any way you can defend it. He says the only issue you've got is he doesn't track back as much as what, say, Bernardo Silva did last season. He's okay in probably games where the fullback isn't going to be an attacking threat going forward. But obviously, when you're playing like your so-called big 6 fullbacks, or your Champions League one, your Mahrez is probably going to be sitting on the bench. So for me, we're in that big six categories, as we've already established earlier on in the show now. And obviously, we want to be attacking that attacking threat. So, and obviously, Trippier is reliable going backwards defensively. If the deal could be done and, wages weren't an issue, of course you get it done. He's just exceptional. Really is.
Go on, Chris.
Riyad Mahrez is just a different level. It's a shame, like you say, Rich and Pete. That he's not a great age, and the wages would be an issue. But he's a sublime player and really, really, really top draw. I think anyone would find it difficult not to take him. I do believe that there's two options for Riyad Mahrez this window. I think he either stays at Man City or I think he goes to Saudi Arabia. And I tell you what, if Saudi Arabia are looking to sign players and want players that are going to make Saudi people fall in love with football, that's the guy you go for, because he's unbelievable as a player. And imagine in the Saudi league, he'd just tear it up. He'd absolutely tear it up. He's one player, isn't he, where you look at the Man City side and you think to yourself, you should play more football. He should be playing more football, because in any other team in Europe, you could argue he'd be one of the first names on the team sheet, and he'd play every single week if he's fit. And at Man City, he gets dropped and sometimes he doesn't play, and he's just brilliant, really, really good. I'd love him, but I don't think we get
it'd be, you're right, Chris. He'd be the poster boy of Saudi football. There's no doubt about it, and that's why I think that they would want him. Riyad Mahrez for me, and you might not like this, Chris. Riyad Mahrez for me is the player that Hatem Ben Arfa should.
I knew you were gonna bring up Hatem Ben Arfa, but you know what? He's the most like Hatem Ben Arfa in the Premier League at the moment, and he's hit that level, hasn't he? Hatem Ben Arfa never quite hit that level, or he did in moments, but not consistently. Riyad Mahrez churns it all the time.
For me, and look, this is a conversation for another time, because I know we're going to wrap up soon, but he would be a player that I would go out for, because it's all well and good buying younger players, mid-20s, early 20s, but you need that level of existing experience and quality to come in. Now, I don't think the transfer fee would be that big, but we've already talked about it. The wages, it would be the big stumbling block to get that deal done. But I would push out the boat for someone like Riyad Mahrez. For him to be guaranteed to play every week is an upgrade on Miggy, 100%. Goals, assists, we talked about it. He adds that 100%. Champions League experience, he has the lot. I don't think he's going to play as much at Man City, and it's not down to him not being good enough. It's just down to Man City moving in a different direction. And I think this is the perfect time to be able to cash in, and the perfect time for someone like Newcastle to get him. I'd love him. I would absolutely love him. But look, it's one of those pie in the sky wishes, dreams. Chris has gone to turn the light on. So we'll maybe rattle through a couple of questions, because we are going to wrap up soon.
Yeah, I'll see what we've got.
It was getting dark. It was getting really dark.
Let's have a look. See if we can get another quick one. Obviously, remember, I hope you've been thinking out your outsider for those positions before we discuss. That's what we're going to end on. Craig Lee just pissed. He said he prefers Kid De Bruyne over. Obviously, we discussed Hugo Bueno before, so looks like we're all unanimous on that front. Tony Beasley, he said, would you be disappointed if Newcastle only signed Harvey Barnes and Tonali?
Yes.
100%. Because I know it's not going to happen. We'll sign more than those. Look, it might never be Harvey Barnes. We don't know, but we'll sign more than 2 players this summer, no doubt.
Yeah.
Just on us, Rich, you can answer this if you want. Like, let's say, hypothetically speaking, no one's saying it's going to happen. If we only sign 2 players and that window's shut on the 31st of August, like, what do you think the fan base would react like? Like, genuinely, what would happen? Would it be like Vernon and Anita back in 2005 when we got back into Europe and it's like, yeah, and then it's like, oh, we've only signed him. Like, how do you think the fan base would react if we genuinely only signed those 2 players?
I think you're probably looking at a repeat, if I'm honest with you. And I think it'll be the first time since obviously the takeover that you'd see a different side to how the fans would be with the consortium and stuff. I think we're in a position now where you don't want to be hearing couldn't get it over the line. You know, we heard that enough for 14 years. Do you know what I mean? And that was the one thing. We're in a situation. I know the FFP does hold a little bit of weight to it and stuff like that, but you know, Newcastle in a position now where we can offer Champions League football. Realistically, if we really want a player, we should be able to go out there and get it done like that. As we mentioned before, if it's true that Harvey Barnes is 25-30 million, and that's the one guy that Eddie Howe wants, just get it done. That's the one thing that you see with people like Liverpool do, you know, and Man City do. They identify the targets. You don't hear anything that comes out, and then bang, it's just done. That's what Newcastle need to start doing. And, you know, perhaps Newcastle weren't prepared enough because obviously we are ahead of where we're meant to be in the project. You know, nobody expected us to be playing Champions League football this year. Nobody expected us to be finishing, you know, in the top 4 to be doing that. You know, we all said progress from 10th. I think I said Conference League was a realistic target bet because we finished in the calendar year. We were like 5th in the league. So if you go from calendar year finishing, we were 5th. So, you know, perhaps we were looking at people who we could get in there, and now all of a sudden, because you've got your Champions League so late on in the season, you've then got to start shifting targets. And perhaps this is why, you know, we're thinking, oh, look, can we get that marquee side and that PIF really want? Now, you know, we're not, you know, like we don't have to wait another 12, 18 months to do it. Can we do it now? And perhaps that's what the delay is at the moment, because we're having to re-evaluate targets that we weren't looking at, but we could get now. But I think what you've got to do is, if you see someone that is in that caliber there, and you actually think, let's just get it done. If we can make it work, do it like we did with Isak. If we can get the deal done the right side, just pull the trigger and do it. But it could be the status. If it is what I've just mentioned, and we are working with them, you've got to be careful that we don't miss out on targets to other teams too.
Can I just, and I just want a one-word answer because I'm conscious we're trying to wrap up, aren't we? And I don't want to create a whole new thing, but just to slightly change what Tony Beasley said there, because I've just been thinking about this as you've been talking, Rich. Like, you know, we arguably do need another winger. But if we weren't to bring in another winger, you know, we've got Murphy, we've got Miggy, we've got Saint-Maximin, we've got Joe Linton possibly, we've got Isak, we've got Gordon, we've got Anderson. So the wingers you could maybe forgive. Strikers, we've got Wilson, we've got Isak, and then potentially Gordon as the third choice, possibly Maxi if needed. Centre midfield, we've got Tonali, we've got Longstaff, we've got Willock, we've got Joe Linton, we've got Bruno, and possibly Lewis Miley. Right centre back, yes, we've got Shah, we've got Lascelles. Right backs, we've got Ashby, we've got Trippier. You're probably wondering where I'm going with this. So going back to Tony Beasley's question, if we were to bring in Sandro Tonali and a top quality, top draw left back to basically replace Dan Burn then becomes the backup to the left back and the backup to Sven Botman, and the owners go, listen, we had a list. We couldn't get the players we wanted. We're going to go again in January. We're going to go and get in the summer. We don't want to bring in players just for the sake of bringing in players, but we've got a world-class left back and we've got Sandro Tonali, and we're going to be actively, you know, keep looking. You know, it's not a sprint kind of thing. How do you feel then? One word answer: are you still disappointed, or can you palette it a little bit better? Because I'm looking at all those positions and I'm thinking, you know, we could maybe get away with not losing a winger as long as it's only Fraser that goes. The striker we've spoken about, and as I say, we've got Gordon and Maxi potentially back up. Lascelles does need replacing eventually. We've got Shah, but could we make do? And then the other problem area, I suppose, is centre back and left back. The centre mids have just whizzed through then, and then the left back, we all know we need an upgrade on that left back. If we bring in, I don't know, Teo Hernandez and Sandro Tonali, and then the window shuts and they go, listen, we had a list, couldn't get them. Are you still as gutted?
Go on, Richie.
Yeah, I still think we need that winger. I really do. I think you look at how many chances. I think we discussed it the other day. We hit the woodwork 26 times. We had 63 missed gilt-edged chances. We need a better quality in the final third. I just think that right wing we really need there. We also said we mentioned about we thought 2 centre midfielders would come in. I could pallet only one coming in, but we need to address that right wing. And that's obviously possibly you could possibly get by on the right centre back, obviously with the cells, and then obviously Kraft can cover there at a push as well for a window. Do you know what I mean? Obviously when he's fit as well. So, but for me, that right wing player is essential on top of the left back. Pete?
Yeah, I could understand what they were trying to do, but I'd still be disappointed because we've got positions that need to be filled. I go back to the original point that I made just before the end of the season. The current squad isn't Champions League ready. And although we need quality players in these positions, we need other players to come in to cover other positions to make sure that we're fully stocked and ready, not just to fight on 3 fronts, but 4. We went all in with the Carabao Cup and we struggled. We got to the final, great, but it affected our league form. In parallel to that, in the build up to the cup final, what we need is to be able to push on in the cup and get to the latter stages or get to a final, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, whatever it is, but still be performing well in the league. We're going to have to do that, hopefully, Carabao Cup, Champions League, Premier League, so 3 competitions at once. And then you've got the FA Cup to come in January. We're going to have a squad available and big enough and ready enough to handle that. At the moment, we don't. So that's why we need more players, in my opinion. I think that's just where we're at.
I'm just sorry. I agree, lads. I agree. I'm just, you know me, I throw devil's advocate out there. I'm just laughing at Jules's comment. I love a good man wrapping up. You've got at least 20 minutes left. It's like a warning sign, isn't it? It's a warning sign. We all just get too excited and we love it too much. And mainly it's me kicking it off. So apologies for that.
Just want to give a shout out from Lisa. She's pointed out for us that Tampa Toon has gifted 5 memberships. Really nice, mate. Thank you very much. We always appreciate the support. I don't know. Has Daz given us permission to for the mice to play and do a giveaway later on in the week before he gets back? Do we know?
I mean, we could try.
Of course, we can.
I think Dazzler said he'd sort the spinny wheel, as he likes to call it, out for next week. So I don't know, but we could always give it a go. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, they've got to be spent. They've got to go out to the members. That's what they're there for.
This is true.
That's what they're there for. Pete, do you want to see us off? I'm going to go just before you do the sponsors, Pete. I'm going to turn on, and I had a little left field one, right? Could be cheap because it depends how you get the deal. Not potentially great age, but this player is already on the way out of the club because he was on loan for the second half of last season, and he would fit what Newcastle are looking for on the left-hand side. And I'm going to throw in, someone mentioned it earlier in the chat, Cancelo.
Great player.
Imagine that as a left-back.
All right.
Yeah.
He's right.
Solves the problem. Solves the problem.
What does Eddie Howe say? Versatility.
Yeah, good player. To be fair, yeah, I went young. I went as an alternative to Livramento, and a lot of people might not know about this player, but I watched him in the under-21s, and I thought he was brilliant. And he's Italian as well, and it's Raul Ballanova, right back. Very, very impressed with him. And I spoke to Antonio Mango about him, and he said he'd already, he's already got his threads and he's already done his homework on him. But Raul Ballanova, really, really good player. Attacking, drives forward, gets balls into the box. I think he got an assist or two during the competition. I don't think it costs a lot to get him out of Inter Milan. They need the money as well.
You've highlighted another name for me now. You've just made me think, going back to the 21, that Juan Miranda, the Spanish left back. What a player he is. What a player he is. That might be one. And obviously then you've got Fresneda on the other side, who we know has got a cheap release clause at right back from Valladolid, who obviously got relegated as well. That one's been mentioned before. We've discussed them on the channel previously in for the transfer show as well. So there we go. Chris, I don't know whether you managed to get one or not, or we're just going to go with the sponsors.
I did, mate. Dead quick. It's an easy one, and we've spoken about him before. We've actually done a short show on him. The more I thought about it, we're talking about central midfield. We're talking about Champions League experience. We're talking about no dickhead policy. I'm saying Gini Van Alden. I'm saying it. I'm saying it. I think he plays in a 4-3-3. He's exactly what we need, to borrow words from the Bruno song. I'm going to say Gini Van Alden because I think we get him relatively cheap, and I think he will crawl back to Newcastle, especially to be playing under this regime with Eddie Howe, and he'd be exactly the kind of player that we'd need.
Yeah, definitely. To finish the story.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go, Pete. You can see us out, mate. Since we've got a lot longer than what we thought we were going to again.
I said to you, I don't want to be on, but I want to be on anywhere near 10 o'clock and look what happens. But
yep.
We always prepare for it just in case. Of course, we have to say massive thanks to our sponsors, Bathroom Design, H2O. Thank you for all your support as always. Russ and the team are sometimes in the chat, but I know they're working away really, really busy at the moment. And of course, just look at some of the quality that they produce. They are unreal. I know we can't come to the next one just yet in the old StreamYard, but what we can do is support radiatorshed.com as well. Massive thanks to you guys for all your support with the channel. Provide top quality materials made from plate steel, providing longevity. All designs are manufactured in Italy. Aluminium rads are very environmentally friendly and are perfect for heat source pumps. And of course, there's some samples there, although I thought they were the real deal a few weeks ago. Typical me. But no, massive thanks to Russ and everyone at the Radiator Shed for your support as well. And just going back up to that, we have some support from the Install Works as well. Thank you to everyone at the Install Works. We can see that in the bottom right-hand corner of our screen right now. Thank you for all your support and supporting the channel in everything that you do. And make sure you check them out as well.
Just want to give Russ a shout out because he did a fantastic job with the in-laws that he got finished last week. Did a fantastic job. So Russ, much appreciated. And another positive to go out on, Mark Taylor. He's donated 5 memberships. So that's coming from an Arsenal fan as well. He obviously knows fantastic content. So look, Mark, much appreciated. We really, really do. As I said before, when you did the super chat, it's nice to see that's coming from not just Newcastle fans that are enjoying our content as well, and to gift that out. Much appreciated, mate.
Lovely.
Big up, Pete.
And just lastly, of course, Jordan and Liam and the crew at Newcastle World, scan and sign for our or for their free NFC newsletter. We've got the QR code there on the screen. Make sure that you get involved in all things Newcastle World. Obviously, we brought to you today Jordan Cronin sort of breaking that exclusive with regards to Dan Burn. I'm sure they're not done with regards to that. So make sure you check it out and support all things Newcastle World. Great bunch of lads there. And then, of course, whenever we sort out the next charity game, I'm sure there'll be representatives of Loaded Mag and UFC, no doubt about it. And yeah, Mark's in the chat. Brilliant stuff. Mark, thank you for joining us as well. Guys, we're about there. Brilliant show as always. Thank you to everyone in the chat. If you haven't already, click the like on the way out. And if you're new to the channel, click that subscribe. So close to 6K. Let's get us there in the next few days. And of course, drive the algorithms up there for the channel to be more accessible to other people so they can see the content as well. We are going to be back potentially, maybe even tomorrow, with some more Newcastle United transfer talk, and we'll have a special guest coming and joining us. So keep an eye on social media for more information with regards to that. But look, guys, until then, you all take care. Richie, what do we say?
How do you like that? Good night.
How you like?